Yes.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for staying for the ObjectStudio native Windows GUI presentation. It's not just about GUI itself, but also about some additional features that we introduced while doing the new GUI, or are necessary for our new testing framework. I was talking about that last teaser. If you are interested in that one, please go back to the Cincom website, and I'm sure we can give you at least a presentation. So there are quite a few changes in the NGUI over the last year. So a lot of things that happened. I did. Let's start out with some non-rectangular windows. Some example you see right here. Taskbar modifications. Short excursion about screens, monitors, the window placement itself, security identifier, some changes to the file name that we had to introduce. Arne already said that we have a workspace, a new one. Yeah, there are just a few other things. I want to start out with non-rectangular windows, and there are actually two of them, or two styles that you can use. By itself, a window is just a rectangular box on the screen. Now, how can you make it something that's non-rectangular? Well, I can apply a region to the window and tell Windows itself that only things that match this region is supposed to be displayed. Like my lovely watch here. A region can be a rectangle, a polygon, or ellipse, or a combination of two or more of these regions. So you can actually create the weirdest figures with the region. The regions are combinable. You can just add or subtract regions, and by doing so, not only create something that's very standard shaped like that circle here, but something that is really weird and abstract. Problem that you're facing here is that some of the features that you're getting using the dialog frame are gone. Meaning you cannot resize the window, and in some areas sometimes you cannot even move the window, because that one requires that you move the mouse or some other device on the title board and then just drag and drop it around on the screen. Here is no title bar, so we cannot hold to that one, and that makes it a little tricky. But when you tell Windows that, oh, by the way, this entire thing is the title bar, trust me, promise. You can now move the entire window around as much as you like, because Windows says, yeah, fine, if you tell me that this is the title bar, then I'm certainly good with that. What else can we do? Well, creating a region for something like this JPEG or PNG file, actually, I'm sorry, that was driving me nuts. So what I'm doing is basically create a transparent window and display this script. I got this one from Jeremy. It's a PNG file with transparencies saved, and the whole window itself is transparent, so only the GUI shows up. So you can actually move it on top of other windows, and you see there are two system browsers, task browsers behind it, and if you move the cursor on the graphic itself, not the transparent areas, you can move that one around as much as you like. Kind of good for things like splash screens. Some of them are still in use over there. Notifications. The taskbar notifications are some things that I wanted to do for long-running projects or some things that on Windows you already said it's not really a headless system at all, and it never will be. But In some areas you just hide the main window and let it run, or you have a service. And then those taskbar notifications are quite handy to have. It's one of those icons in the lower right corner of the taskbar. I'm sure all of you, or most of you that actually use Windows, know about those tiny little icons. You have a context menu that you can assign to those with some default action and whatnot. Plus, you can get those information, error, and warnings, notifications, battery level, volume control, network status. All of those little features have those notifications, and now you can do the same thing. If you look down here, I'm not sure, I don't think you can see it from all the way from above, but down here it's the ObjectStudio icon. Oh, thank you, appreciate it. And so with that icon registered, we can now show those different notifications. Deferred move list is quite a simple concept, but it actually helps a lot. So you basically just work on all the different windows that you have that you want to move. If you want to resize something that requires a whole lot of recalculation, that can end in some flickering of the UI. You usually don't want to do that. If you want to move a window or a set of windows, then you want to move it down. Boom, there, for the user to use. Double buffering only gets you so far, because Windows double buffering is implemented for each window and not for a set of windows. So we have the deferred move list, meaning I calculate all the target rectangles for all the windows that I want to move, add them to the deferred move list, and I tell the Windows system, now you move. And that's not something that we add. We could do it in just a simple collection in Smalltalk and then just iterate over it and move every single window. No, this is actually a feature that is introduced by Windows. And when I tell it to move all, it actually moves all at the very same time, no flickering and nothing. So it's a nice little thing, especially when you have flickering, otherwise, what bother? Monitors. I love my two screens that I have attached to my machine, and I wouldn't want to work without those two screens. Having a tablet and running Smalltalk on top of it with all the different windows, driving me nuts. Sorry, but I love those big two screens. Of course, sometimes you want to know what screens are attached, what's the resolution of the screens, what's the work area. So we see here the available screens. I have two of those. I have the display rectangle from my main screen. So you see that there's a primary monitor, there's a secondary monitor right here. If you have a third, fourth one, it actually shows up there, including the display rectangle and display area that you can use inside that screen. Expressed in virtual screen coordinates, meaning that the second screen doesn't start at 0, 0, but in my case it starts at 1920, 0, all the way to the end of the screen. Work areas are actually important to us, since we don't want to override or show windows in the area where you used to have, or where you usually have your taskbar. Taskbar is usually at the bottom, but can be left, right, or at the top. Can be at the primary monitor, can be at the secondary monitor. I have no idea. But Windows actually tells me where those monitors are, what the resolution is, what the display rectangle is. That's up here, 1920 by 1080. And my work area rectangle, 1920 by 1040. So there are 40 pixels on the bottom of the screen where my taskbar usually is. So that's an area I don't want to display any window on, or my window shouldn't reach into that taskbar area, because the taskbar is always on top. Taskbar is always on top, so even if you slide down your window, it's all of a sudden behind the taskbar, and the user might not be able to get to the information they're looking for. So that's where this work area rectangle comes into play, and makes it convenient to figure out where do I place my work windows. A thing that we did for our testing, and was when we were testing our non-rectangular windows without the taskbar, we figured out that it would be nice to figure out, does the window have a taskbar at all? Is there one displayed? And if it has a taskbar, where the heck is it? There are basically 3, probably 4 ways to close a window. There's in Windows, there's this, on the upper right corner you have this red X button. That's the first one. The second one is usually through the menu. You go File, Close, and the application closes or the window closes. There's maybe a shortcut, like an Alt+4 to close the window. The fourth version is usually when the image crashes and burns, that also closes the window. So that one is wrong, but yeah, I don't want to talk about that too much. The taskbar information, I need to figure out, is the X button, is it available, is it off screen, is it on screen, is it focusable, is it something that we can do that I then can tell my mouse event to place itself over there, press the button, and then I do all the tests to figure out, did the window close, was the Smalltalk entity released, clinically got it collected, and stuff like that. So I really need to figure that out. If it's invisible or off-screen, why is it invisible or off-screen? Does it fit the test case? Non-rectangular windows, it's of course invisible and doesn't exist, so I cannot use that inside the test. Mostly for our test. Window placement is also a structure that's available in Windows. It not just gives you the coordinates of the window where it currently is, but also the size that it's supposed to take when it's minimized, the size it's supposed to take when it's maximized, and of course the state, is it minimized, is it maximized? Now I can just ask every window for its current location and what the state is, and this window placement gives me all the information wrapped up in a nice little instance. So before I actually save the image, take a snapshot, I ask the window, okay, give me your Windows placement information, store it in an instance variable or some other place, wherever I want, and when the image comes back up, I go to that place, take the Windows placement information, apply it to the window again, and so not only can the windows be on a certain position on my screen, but also they can be minimized, maximized, and when I restore the image, they are at the very same place as the user placed it. Nice thing about it is that if I detach a screen, so the whole thing is maybe on my secondary monitor, and I snapshot my image, and I bring up my image, or detach the screen beforehand, so I have my primary monitor, and I tell the window, okay, now it's time for your Windows placement. It actually moves the whole thing to the very right corner, because the original Windows placement is not available. So it actually moves the window into the visible area, and I don't have to think about it. I really don't have to think about it. I just go Windows, yeah, go ahead and do it. Security identifier is something that, yeah, I did for only 2 purposes. The implementation, the wrapping is not very far done. but there are two things. Yeah, well, the security identifier structure, variable length, identifies the computer account. So there's a whole lot of stuff that you need to do in order to get the security identifier. It's actually quite complicated. So the internal processes in Windows refer to account security identifier rather than the account name, user group. So that one is stored, so not your user ID and password. The only thing that we use it for, or I use it for, is to figure out, am I running with admin wet? Very nice for when I need to write an installer, or a customer needs to write an installer, you need to have the elevated privileges. So if your user doesn't actually give you the privileges, you can figure that one out and just ask, am I running as admin? If you're not, then you can tell the user, please restart the process with admin level privileges. Or if I have some other application that is never ever supposed to run as an admin, that's also something I can check. Am I running as admin? If so, shut it down, notify the administrator, the IT group that some guy was hacking my application or starting not in a mode that he's not supposed to. So that's the only thing that I did with this security identifier. It's, as I said, quite complex otherwise. File name. Extension to class PC file name. In VisualWorks, the PC file name is a very old, very common class. Unfortunately, it's quite stupid when you get to Windows itself. If you know where you're going, if you exactly know where you're going, everything is fine, everything's peachy. But if you want to know where is my desktop or my documents folder, the music folder, pictures folder of the current user, the current user can be any username, the current user, program data, program files in different languages, in different language packs, have different names. So not everybody uses the US American native language pack on Windows itself. So there are program files heißt programming in German. So you're looking for programming instead of program files. Program data has also another name. Documents are documenting. I'm sure. What's your documents folder? Or do you use the English? Do you use the English native language pack on your machine? Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's documents in this machine. But not, as I said, not everybody uses that, and we have different names on different machines. Temp directory can be located all over the place. So, but all of them, what they have in common is a global identifier, and the global identifier actually makes sure that we are in this right folder. So we've added a whole bunch of that stuff. Not just the security identifier, but really access to those folders, music, pictures, gems, videos, and that stuff. Also, if you want to create a temporary file in the right location with a certain prefix, that's it.
I'm not sure to completely get that point. So on my hard disk, it's written like program file or program data. But sometimes it appears as in French. If I have my computer in French, which is not, but what does it work? And I don't really understand what is this class PC file name. What is it for?
It's just a file name, but on the class side, in order to figure out where a certain directory, you want the program files directory. Yeah, because that's where your program usually is installed. Or in program data, that's where your image is usually installed. At least that's what we do, because program files you're not supposed to change. So the image file has to be the location where you can actually save it, save the image. The file name, the directory name, changes from country to country. All right? It really changes from country to country. but the global user, the global ID that Microsoft basically used for every kind of folder is the same. So no matter what name it has finally on the disk drive, when I use PC file name as program data, I get the correct folder in return, and now I can start creating files inside this folder. So these are class methods in order to figure out just the location inside my machine. Where is my program files directory? Where is my documents directory and stuff like that. Maybe the projects are stored in there or so.
And how do you use that?
Microsoft assigns a global ID, and that's a string of numbers basically, and I'm using that one to query the Microsoft system, and it returns the correct folder for me. So whenever you use a French Windows, you don't need to figure out, am I running on the French Windows, what's the name on the French Windows, maybe I need a username or anything like that. I just tell this one, get me the folder for program data or for documents or for pictures, and it actually will do the whole work for you. As I said, temporary folder is very commonly used with a certain prefix and extension. File name. I not only did the directories on the file name, but also retrieve, name, and hand to the executable that is associated with that file name. So if you have an image file, so if you have the attention ing, which is usually some sort of image picture and whatnot, then it might be Microsoft Photos, Microsoft Picture, or Overview, or any other. I can just figure out who is assigned, registered for this extension, and not just that, I can ask the system for the icon. So that was basically for my workspace. I'm using an editor called UltraEdit, and that's the icon for it. So whenever I have a text file and I drop it onto my workspace editor, I can just take the icon that's up front. There's the ObjectStudio icon in my buffer, so it's the default icon. And if I drop anything like here that has an associated application, I can take the icon that's on top of that and just display it. Just for me to know that's some visual guide here. Just a little tour. Power state. Power state is kind of, it's a very important clause that gives you all the information about the power state of your current system. Does it have a battery? Does it have, what is the charge of the battery? Things like power management events. Am I powering down? Am I powering up actually? Do I return from a sleep or a hibernate? Do I want to sleep or do I want to hibernate? Who subscribed to my Twitter account probably knows that just quite recently I had a problem with a long-running task that was really right at the border with the latency connecting to another database overseas, and the task was always, it stopped in odd intervals, and usually it stopped at night, probably 10 minutes after I left, and boom, it sat there the whole night and did nothing, and I needed it finished as soon as possible. So I wrote a short watchdog application, and for the watchdog application, I could use, class, it's a class, DisplayRequire, telling the whole system that it needs to be alive and awake, and I need the display alive and awake. Windows 8, keep the display turned on if the user doesn't turn it off. So if the user physically pushes the button, then the display goes off no matter what I tell it. but that was not the feature that I needed. I could actually, the system required forces the system to be in the working state by resetting the system idle timer. So I could tell the system that while this process is not finished, I won't need to restart it, but at the same time you don't go into power down mode. No way. I need this process finished. So I told the system that the system is required, it doesn't shut down the hard drive, and you just continue going on until finally the process is finished. I'm happy with that it's finished, I'm happy with the result, and then I can tell the system to either hibernate, suspend, or if some other application actually prevents me from hibernate and suspend, and if I still want it, I can tell it, okay, no matter what, force hibernate, force suspend, the system goes down, no matter what. And if the other applications say no, back. So, very nice class, especially for long-running tasks. Video encoding is also some task that usually takes a little bit of time, or as I said, in my case, was a long-running database process that I needed to get done. Okay. Memory info. Yeah, that class is represents the current memory that is registered and available in your system. What you can do is, last year in the ESA presentation I was talking about system tools. And part of the system tools was a so-called Process Explorer that showed you all the processes available on the current machine. And what I wanted to do next was to figure out, okay, this process, how much memory does it actually use? Or how much memory do I actually use? So I started to write this over this meminfo class, and you can get the information really about the memory load, a percentage of how much memory is in use at the moment. Total physical. How much do we have in terms of physical memory RAM? Available physical is that available in bytes, immediately reused without having to write content to disk. So how much memory can still go on? A customer of ours uses the memory as sort of a buffer database and just keeps on writing until the memory is pretty much used up, and then starts dumping the stuff. That could help you to just figure out a way of maybe installing a different memory policy that you need, or figure out, okay, I require, I don't know, 8 GB of RAM, and if you don't have that, then I'm not going to start. It also tells you about page file, what's available in the page file, total virtual memory and the available virtual memory. All of those data is actually in bytes, except the last one, the memory load, is a percentage, and everything else is in bytes that are available on your system. So I'm not talking about this. With the 32-bit system, I have 4 GB available, which is never really true. And with the 64 GB system, I have X amount available. This is really the memory that's built into your machine and what is available for you on the machine, and then gives you some optimization leeway what you do in terms of the memory policy. Performance counter is another tool for our testing. Maybe also for use for some system admin people. Performance counters is basically the big thing that you use for when you look for Windows events. There are a whole lot of counters and information that you get from the Windows system, not just for counters, not just for performance, but also for network throughput and stuff like that. So you can actually query the system for all of those, for all of that information, and get it into Smalltalk. There is no visual display of this information. It's really just at the moment getting the data from the Windows system into Smalltalk, and then afterwards do whatever you want with it. You could write a system management application running on a couple of servers that transfer the data with, I don't know, SMTP to your display, and it tells you all the state of your servers, what's the memory layout, what's the performance in the CPU, and stuff like that. Keyboard, another thing that we use for our testing. Not everybody uses the standard US keyboard layout, and not everybody uses strings without things like Axos or German umlauts. So even in the US systems, I can load a different keyboard layout, and then start testing, sending, for example, certain strings, certain shortcuts to a window in a different layout. Can be a different scan code, can be the same scan code with a different keyboard. So I can actually really, a colleague of mine uses a Russian keyboard. Another colleague, Dirk, actually uses a Belgian keyboard, which I'd never be able to type on a Belgian keyboard. Another gentleman uses, what is he using? Ukrainian keyboard. I'm not sure how much different that one from the Russian keyboard is. But they can use and tell me what the keyboard layout number is, or name of the keyboard layout. We can save that, ask the Windows to load that keyboard layout, and then perform more or less the same test with a different keyboard layout. Very interesting outcome, especially when you talk about shortcuts to the Windows system. So not only make sure that the regular Control S, Control V, Control C stuff works, but also something like Control A for A umlaut or Ü, or something with Axos. So, and that's something that you can test for. The new Workspace is something new. It's a rigid control with some buffers. It has a tabbed interface. I always wanted the debug it right in the toolbar. For ObjectStudio users, that's actually a big step forward. If you're using the Visual Workspace, well, depends what you're used to actually. But this is the layout of the new Workspace. One thing that I introduced was it has namespaces can be imported into the Workspace scripts, which is, I think, kind of nice. Either using a script or a dialog. The dialog you see here. Script is on top of it, so with __, current environment, add namespace. You can import a namespace so you don't have to write every time. OS, tools, something, and reference it that way if it's not imported by default. If it's imported by default, okay, you're good. But with all of the number of namespaces, sometimes it's just convenient to import the namespace into the current environment and have access to it. So there are 3 different variables in this new editor that are set by default. One is the current environment, one is the current editor, one is the current buffer. The buffer has a reference to the editor in the environment, but just for easy access. Editor, you can place any text, select anything, do anything what you can do with the regular text editor. And environment, as I said, not just only import variables, but you can also set workspace variables or anything you like. Important is, please keep that in mind, each buffer has its own set of imports. Each one has its own environment. So if you import it in A, it's not available in B. At least that's the current implementation. I haven't heard from the customers back yet. They're still wrapping their head around this one. But I haven't heard back if that's a good thing or if they want a shared environment for all of the processes. So if you have an opinion, please tell Arden. That's the perfect job for him. Lindsay is the product manager, and he can then collect this information and then tell me if anybody can back the role or whatever they prefer in this case. Any questions? Yes.
Regarding the taskbars, do you know if Windows offers some way to customize them and change the border or them?
The taskbar itself? You want a different one?
No, the taskbar.
The taskbar itself. Good point. I mean, the title bar is the one on top of the window, the taskbar. Actually, I have to pass on that. I cannot answer the question. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So, one question I couldn't answer. Oh, second.
Yeah. You talked about the extension to PC file name, and I'm working a lot with that, so I've done some extension on that. You said that one thing was create a temporary file in some folder. Is it a real temporary file which goes away as soon as the last handle is released? Or did you just say?
No, it's the Windows system. You tell Windows that this is a temporary file. Okay. In this folder with this specification, prefix, an extension, and a name. And when you're done with it, then it will stick around for a while, but the next time the temporary folder is erased, it's erased. But it's not like something that's deleted automatically.
Oh, okay.
Here?
I have a question for the availability. Yeah, so the talk is presenting ObjectStudio, but it doesn't give a version number. And technically, how much is this based on ObjectStudio, how much is it based on Foundation? That's what I just represented.
Yeah.
So how much is available for those people who have applications running on Windows, but are traditionally coming from VisualWorks and not from ObjectStudio?
Okay. So far, this stuff is all based on ObjectStudio, on the work that we did for the NGUI. If you want to separate it out into VisualWorks only, then please go and talk to Arden. If that's something that we want to do or we should do, then it's up to Arden and Suzanne to actually tell me if that's okay. So I'm sure for the right price, Arden can take requests. Oh yeah, no more?
Yeah. One more on this. For a long time, we have in VisualWorks this so-called variable file name notation with the $.
Yes.
So I can also let the system evaluate, give me the full name for the $10 file. So how much more does your approach to access those documents folder or the videos folder?
Well, the temp you have in a environment variable.
Yeah.
The documents folder is not.
Yeah, but
The picture folder is not.
But you can say $user profile / documents. That's always available.
If it's documented, it has name documents, then
No, it always has. Even in German thing.
Even in German, yes, sure. And then you have program data, program files, all this stuff that is available if you need to. If you need to personalize it for a certain language or so, you don't need to go. You can do it with these. If you have the user profile, app data, local, and stuff like that, these are shortcuts going direct, so you don't need to actually
Okay.
cascade it.
just a more charming way to denote that.
Pretty much, pretty much.
Nice.
All right. So then, thank you very much. We are here for a whole week. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. If anything else happens, please check with partner design, and I'm sure we can help you right there. Thank you.